What this game reminds me of is the film What's Up, Tiger Lily, which was written by Woody Allen, where he redubbed a Japanese spy film into English, completely changing the storyline and turning it into a hilarious spoof of a spy film where they're searching for the world's best egg salad recipe. This game seems like that. It's as if they took a mediocre side-scrolling beat-em-up, redubbed the dialogue into something outrageous, and turned it into one of the greatest video games ever. Maybe that is what they did. I don't know. It feels like that, but when you look at the game itself, it's technically a modern release. I mean, it looks good, it plays well. And I'll end the review there. If you're feeling a shortage of awesome side-scrolling beat-em-ups in your life and want to see an example of actual quality writing, instead of just ripping off the movie Aliens for the 5,000th time, check out Tokyo Beatdown and prepare to become a Lewis Cannon fan.
Poison wins!
Welcome to Classic Game Room, where I bring you a fighting game on the Sega Saturn that has chainsaws and flamethrowers. This is Final Fight Revenge.
Final Fight Revenge!
Final Fight is better known as a series of side-scrolling beat-em-ups from Capcom, but here we have a 1999 or 2000 release for the Japanese Sega Saturn, Final Fight Revenge, which is a fighting game, and a somewhat interesting one. Before you hit the buy button on eBay, watch the gameplay for a bit, because Final Fight Revenge is, in my opinion, not one of Capcom's better fighting games, but it is different, and it's definitely wacky and has a good sense of humor.
Somersault!
Ah, good old Poison. No relation to the band. She's actually one of the better fighters in the game. And I think it's no coincidence that her name is Poison, since she's basically a walking venereal disease that attacks enemies by chomping on their neck. She's a winner. One of the main features in Final Fight Revenge is that when you start each round, there's weapons laying on the ground that you can pick up and then attack your opponent with. But most of them aren't terribly useful. And it's easy to get distracted by the weapons. Your special attacks are far more powerful than any of the knives, swords, guns, flamethrowers, or chainsaws in this game, and that's kind of ridiculous, because really the flamethrower and chainsaw should win every time. The biggest issue for me here isn't the questionable weapons and the mechanics there, it's the gameplay itself, which isn't nearly as smooth as most of the other Capcom fighting games. But we do get this. Poison stuns enemies by showing them a greatest hits collection of her slutty behavior. Wow, and here we get the rocket launcher, which is possibly the least effective weapon in the game. So what we've got here is a unique 3D fighting game on the Sega Saturn with a weapons system that's best avoided. Don't even waste your time picking them up, just go straight for your opponents and pull off special moves. That does far more damage. I don't think Final Fight Revenge plays as well as Capcom's other fighting games like X-Men, Children of the Atom, Darkstalkers, or Cyberbots. But it does have character, so I've got to give it credit for that. Obviously, you can play 1 or 2 player locally, And this is a Japanese exclusive, released pretty late in the Saturn's life. 1999, 2000, the Dreamcast was out by then. So I guess it's no surprise this one never made it to the West.
Ready? Fight!
This gun may be the only one that's worth picking up in the game. What's really disappointing is that the flamethrower doesn't do enough damage and the chainsaw is too slow. How do you block a chainsaw? His arms should be on the ground. They need to go back and redo this one. There's so much potential here. It's like they pulled the plug before the game was finished or something. And the best part of it is that this is one of these games like Radiant Silvergun, which is unbelievably expensive, probably because it's rare. I love the thriller video recreation or the Teen Wolf dance here. Good stuff. And I've got a classic game room shout out and thank you to send to George from McKee's Rocks outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Thank you, George. It was nice meeting you last year. Thanks for handing Final Fight Revenge and Cyberbots to the show. Oh yeah, the shotgun's not too bad either. That's one of the guns worth picking up. The fact is, given the
Hey,
price,
how's it going, everyone?
I would avoid this one. There's better fighting games on the Saturn which are far more affordable unless you're looking to collect for rarity or play something which is really different. In which case, Final Fight Revenge is there for you, although I would stick with Final Fight on the Sega CD. You know it. This one has its moments. It's Final Fight Revenge. Thanks again, George. See you next time. Vanished from Earth Classic Game Room broadcasts from the Intergalactic Space Arcade on its never-ending mission to review everything. Welcome to Classic Game Room. I love the artwork on this one. Get ready for Cobra Triangle on your Nintendo Entertainment System. Brilliant intro graphic and excellent music. This is Cobra Triangle for the NES, released in 1989. From developer Rare, the same folks who brought us the excellent RC Pro-Am on the NES. And this plays a lot like RC Pro-Am with boats. But it's not the same game at all. If anything, it's like RC Pro-Am meets Spy Hunter meets Gradius. There's a lot to like and a lot to get seriously frustrated about in Cobra Triangle. For starters, technically, it's extremely solid. What you would expect from Rare. It looks and plays a lot like RC Pro-Am. In fact, the controls are nearly the same, but instead of just racing, you're making your way through a wide variety of mission types. Everything from racing to dropping off mines, which is what I'm doing here, saving civilians, jumping waterfalls, battling end bosses, and more. You collect weapon and speed upgrades, and you activate those in the same way that you do in Gradius or Life Force. I love the music and the overall look of the game, but you know what I don't like? And if you've played this game, I'm sure you can guess. It's these stupid waterfall levels. They're not fun, they're just irritating, and they break up the flow of what would otherwise be an amazing NES game. Now, it's still pretty good as it is, but the waterfall sucks. You accelerate and have to dodge the whirlpool and hit that moving ramp at just the right moment, and there's a whole bunch of them, by the way. I tried turning around and doing it again. I tried memorizing the pattern. I tried everything possible until I eventually just got lucky. I could never do that again no matter how many times I tried. And the thing is, by the time I was done playing this game, I never wanted to do it again. Like, I'd rather play RC Pro-Am. That's not to say I don't recommend Cobra Triangle. There's some great stuff in here. Just be forewarned, you'll hate waterfalls for the rest of your life. Which I already hated anyway, thanks to TLC. Come to think of it, I don't like whirlpools all that much either. You know, I'm not sure what to say about this one because I think it's a good game on many levels, but I just don't like it. And I think that's because deep down, regardless of whether or not you like this game, I want to play more RC Pro-Am, and this isn't RC Pro-Am, it's Cobra Triangle. Which does pack a good dose of that remember how hard NES games used to be? So if you've got the time and the patience for that, well, good luck getting through this one. I love the music and the look and feel of the game. I think it's ambitious and technically solid. It's just not terribly well balanced, and that throws it off for me. And like I said, admittedly, what I want to play is RC Pro-Am with boats, and that's not what this game is. This one is pretty inexpensive and easy to find, so if you think it looks cool and you're up for a challenge, have fun with those waterfalls, by the way. Don't say I didn't warn you. Then I do recommend Cobra Triangle. Like usual these days, I've got a classic game room shout out and thank you to send to my man Ben from Buffalo, New York. Thank you, Ben, for sending Cobra Triangle and rekindling my hatred and distrust of waterfalls. Who's ready to take it back to 1986 on your Nintendo Famicom with Baltron? Baltron, like a combination of Voltron and Balrog, which is weird, but also cool at the same time. Kinda like this game. It's weird, kinda cool. The Famicom's not known for its spaceship shooters, but this one is worth checking out, maybe because it'll only cost you a couple bucks. If you like super duper old school, hard as nails, horizontally scrolling spaceship shooters, this one might be for you. There's a storyline. It's very important. Let's read it together. Time is 2,999 space year. We are living on the planet Starlenian, which is very similar to the Earth. Oh, the thing scrolled too fast. Damn it. Stuff. Baltron, Earth, lasers, blow things up with spaceships. There. That's all you really need to know. For the piece of space, it's Baltron. I fight for space peace. I fight for the freedom to wear short shorts. That was EDF, but regardless, grab your Famicom or NES controller, whatever, and get ready to die over and over and over again in this game, which is like a combination of Defender and Vanguard and like a whole bunch of other games. The radar screen is obviously very Defenderish. Now, you can change directions, but so far I've found no reason to do that. 9 times out of 10 you die, or at least I died, trying to change directions. There's also a smart bomb, which is the flash, On the top right there, you see it says flash, and you activate that by pushing up and B, and then you can warp. If you're totally screwed, warping is a good idea. That applies to pretty much any situation. You push down and B to warp. So if you find yourself in a tunnel later in the game when it gets really hard and you're like, I'm about to crash into this stalactite, which is guarded by missiles, warp out of there, and then you can die the next time around. Baltron. I think I picked this game up for like $5 or $6 a couple of years ago. It's been sitting buried in my collection forever. And I guess I never got around to reviewing it, so I'm putting the show back together here and thought it would be fun to review Baltron. And it kind of is, except it's very hard. It's one of these games from the era where like you just have to memorize every little part of the map and just be pixel perfect with your flying. It looks a little bit like Thexter, but Thexter was way better. Let's be honest, Baltron is okay. It's not great. $5, looking for something different. Check out Baltron. Maybe it's even worth $10. Somewhere in there between $5 and $10. Don't spend more than that, because it does get boring after a while. Oh, you kidding me? Warp. What with the constant crashing into barriers and stalagmites and the merciless enemies and oh, here, pro tip. It took me a while to figure this out. You need to refuel. And the refueling canisters are the blue things that float up in front of you. So they're easy to shoot. It's kind of like River Raid. So don't shoot them. Oh, another thing about this game. You can carpet bomb koalas. Any game that allows you to carpet bomb koalas can't be all bad. Got the funky chicken! Stupid koala. We'll eat it later. I mean, I don't think you're supposed to carpet bomb them. I collected this one, but, I just ejected it into space later. Carpet bombing puts them out of their misery quickly. If any animal deserves to be carpet bombed from space, it's koalas. They're cute, sure, but they're up to no good. I don't trust them. Also, I think there's like a space chicken that you're supposed to collect or something. I kept shooting it accidentally because, if you get in front of my lasers, you're getting shot in space. Baltron. I fight for the freedom of space. I fight for the extermination of interstellar murder koalas in the year 2999. Baltron. As far as I can tell, Baltron was released only to the Famicom and not the Western NES. If you search for it on eBay, you'll pull up a bunch of Famicom cartridges and Dungeons & Dragons expansion packs for Baltron's Beacon. Fooled you, stupid barrier. I warped away. Only to crash into you. Another day, that rhymes. It's also sadly accurate. Oh, god damn it. Playing this on the family computer instead of one of those fancy HDMI NES thingies because I'm bringing like all these reviews back super old school. I may start recording the Atari stuff on VHS again. Why not? Nobody else is doing it. I mean, there's a good reason, but it never stopped me before from doing something stupid. No. This level is tricksy. It's false. But hey, you know what's not stupid? Playing a little Baltron on your Famicom. You know why? Because it's kind of cool and you can bomb koalas. And it's hard. If you like hard games, here you go. Fight for space peace. Which is dumb, because then video games would be boring. What with peace and all. What would the buttons do if you couldn't shoot at each other? I'm gonna send a nice message to this person. Friendship! That sucks. Vanished from Earth, Classic Game Room broadcasts from the Intergalactic Space Arcade on its never-ending mission to review everything. Welcome to Classic Game Room, where we all know that the only thing cooler than a robot is a robot that transforms into something, preferably a cassette player. But in this case, it's a future space jet. This is Gunmetal! Originally released in 2002 for the Xbox and PC, Gunmetal is not to be confused with Gunmetal. There's two games released around the same time with roughly the same name. This is the one with the giant transforming robot, which makes it perfect for Mecha March Madness. You're like Jetfire in this game, and who doesn't love that? So what is it, like a first-person shooter version of Herzog Zwei? Kind of, let's check it out. I'm playing this on the original Xbox, and it took me quite a few games to get used to the controls. It's somewhat dated, but at the same time, Gunmetal does play really well. Provided you have a bit of patience. If you haven't played this game before, give it some time. Once you get into it, I think there's a lot to love. The game is broken into missions. Each mission has different objectives, and frequently, more often than not, you'll have to play missions over and over again until you figure out what it is you're supposed to do. The map isn't terribly useful, and frequently when you go attack one thing, something else will destroy your base, and you have no idea it's there. So give the game some time. You're playing a giant transforming mech with missiles. I mean, come on, it's worth it. So as you can see, you fly around as a plane and blow up enemies in the air and on the ground. Tapping the Y button on your Xbox controller will transform you into a giant robot. And you have different weapons as a plane and as a robot. So that gives you a variety of ways to attack enemies, and that's one of the game's strongest features. Do you fly around as a fast-moving jet or transform into a slow-moving robot? There's no in-between. You cannot transform into a cassette player and let Laserbeak do the job for you. I tried. If I was Soundwave, seriously, I would be the laziest transformer. I'd sit back in an easy chair and just shout commands at Ravage, like, "Give me a beer! Rumble! Bring me Bumblebee's head on a plate!" While the visuals and audio in Gunmetal are fairly bland and it looks dated by today's standards, it is fun and extremely challenging. It's a lot harder than it looks, actually. Because you've often got to destroy waves of enemies before they destroy one of your radar dishes or your base or something. And the environments are quite large, so it's good that you can transform into a jet, because jets are fast, cassette players are not. A lot of the missions are trial and error. Gunmetal is frequently not clear about what it is you're supposed to attack. The ship, the tanks, the troops. You know what the hell, just destroy all of them. You're a giant robot. That's what they do. That's how giant transforming robots roll. With a wide variety of weapon types that you unlock after each mission. That's right, they just get better and better. Annoyingly, after a while though, the missions do look and feel like more of the same, but it's not too bad. Gunmetal's reasonably affordable. Just make sure you're buying the right game, although this is the more common one. I have to admit that while it kind of looks like a 3D version of Herzog Zwei, it's not. It's not a strategy game. And you know I've got a Classic Game Room shout out and thank you going all the way to James from Louisville, Kentucky, by way of England. Thank you, James, for hand delivering Gunmetal.
The back of the packaging says, transform, target, terminate. Is it a mech? Or a jet? It's both. Is it live? Or is it Memorex? You know, it doesn't matter. As long as it's being played in Soundwave. Or Blaster. He was the other boombox, right? Each faction had their own boombox transformer. Soundwave was definitely the coolest, but who would win when fighting for RC's love? Blaster or Perceptor? Yeah, I'm going with Perceptor on that one. Transforming jets are so cliche. This is fun and all. I like gunmetal, but what you really need is a game where you play as a giant transforming microscope. I guess the Transformers games already did that. Or you could try gunmetal. It's cheap, give it a try. It's got transforming robots and explosions. And the announcer's great. I love this guy.
Nice shooting. Now, proceed to the base and hit it with everything you have.
Nice game! The robots are ripping out my brain! Yeah, it's good, but it would have been better with Sharkticons. Of course, that can be said for pretty much anything. I love the packaging design, and it's got a full-color instruction manual. If you're watching this, then you're watching the Hyper Mark III review. Let's take a trip into the R-Zone! Woo! Just kidding. If this was the R-Zone, you would be red and blurry and never escape. Woo! Transform, target, terminate. I love the robot design for gunmetal. Looks great on the packaging, and I love the packaging. This just works well. It's got all the required ingredients. Giant robot with a gun that transforms, explosions, jets, and a title stamped into steel. Is it a mech or a jet? It's both. I love that because it reminds me of the old Miller Lite commercials. Tastes great, less filling, transforms and drops napalm. We also get a sizable, comprehensive, full-color instruction manual. Something most games don't dare give you these days. Complete with screenshots, enemy descriptions, and a storyline. So you know what you're fighting for. Explosions. Really, who cares? There's some kind of nonsense in here about wormholes and jump gates and the new Cold War. If you're really interested, it's there for you in the instruction manual. Gunmetal, I hope you've enjoyed it. I know I have. Thank you for watching. Follow Classic Game Room on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Patreon. If you liked this review, then you'll love my review of the Transformers 1985 poster calendar, which has a transforming cassette player. Here's the kind of plot that I like. Secret weapon, enemy, good luck. It's rush attack. As you know from previous reviews, I like game titles with an like Lock and Chase. Why say and when says the same thing with one letter, but still requires two keystrokes? Rush attack. It's a play on words. Remember, back in 1987, we Americans were programmed to believe the Russians were bad guys thanks to propaganda films like Red Dawn and Rambo 3. We also believed you could bring down heavily armored helicopters with a bow and arrow. You can't, I've tried. And besides, the Russians aren't the bad guys are Decepticons. Not only are you fighting a vague enemy that may or may not be from Russia, but you are rushing at them with a knife because your commanders are idiots. You shank the bad guys. This game should be called Stab and Attack. Mindless waves of enemies run at you and you stab them in the stomach. The only game more violent than this is Dig Dug, because in Dig Dug you inflate them until they explode. In this game you just mortally wound all of them with a knife. You're being sent into the enemy camp, full of heavily armed enemies with guns.
armed with a knife. How about another title called F This Mission? I'm going home. You'd think the enemy would maybe stop and shoot you. No, they just run at you until you stab them. They don't even try to dodge your knife attack. Rush Attack is from the early wave of Konami games released on the Nintendo Entertainment System. And back in the day, I was a huge fan of Contra, also from Konami. And while I enjoyed Rush Attack a bit, it was nowhere near as much fun as Contra, because in Contra you can fill the screen with the spread shot and firepower and basically lay everything to waste. In Rush Attack, you just memorize everything and stab a bunch of people. Occasionally you pick up weapons, but for the most part you're going through this game with a knife. Not nearly as much fun as Contra, if you ask me. Also, you accidentally grab ladders all of the time, and don't even try to jump down towards enemies because you'll die. Rush Attack is like the precursor to the modern stealth game. Rather than firepower, it requires strategy. And by strategy, I mean memorization. You just memorize everything in this game, because the enemy formations are always the same, the ladders don't move. And while you can play this game with 2 players, like we're watching here, it's actually better as a single-player game. Contra, on the other hand, is the complete opposite. That game is much better with 2 players. Playing this game with 2 players breaks up the strict memorization of the game, but you'll find that one player will run ahead, leaving the other one stranded at the left end of the screen only to get run into and killed. Oh good, we got rid of player 2. Here's an example of single-player gameplay, just running away from bad guys. Then when they're all in a group, you just stab them. Watch out for landmines, and the enemies with red pants will jump. You run out of ammo quickly, whether it's the pistol, bazooka, or grenades. Rush Attack is all about the knife. They should have bought the Crocodile Dundee license for this game. While this is not one of my favorite NES games, not nearly as much fun as it used to be. If you want to relive the past, or play it for the first time on the NES, it's extremely easy to find and affordable. For just $1 or $2, you can be rushing at enemies and stabbing them in the Memorization Fest 2D side-scroller Rush Attack.
Banished from Earth, Classic Game Room broadcasts from the Intergalactic Space Arcade on its never-ending mission to review everything. Welcome to Classic Game Room, where I'm celebrating robots, mechs, and cyborgs all month, starting with eSWAT, City Under Siege for the Sega Genesis.
Sega.
From way back in 1990, the dawn of the cyberpunk era, this is eSWAT, City Under Siege for the Sega Genesis, which was originally called Cyber Police City Under Siege in Japan. Let's kick off Mecha March Madness Month
eSWAT.
with a month full of robots, mechs, and cyborgs, starting with this incredibly average side-scrolling platformer on your Mega Drive or Sega Genesis. E-SWAT. I remember this game when it was new. And I'll be honest, I was disappointed in 1990 or 91, whatever year I played it, because it had no relation to my favorite manga at the time, Appleseed, which features E-SWAT. But this is a different E-SWAT, no Dunin or Briarios to be found. In E-SWAT City Under Siege, you're like a poor man's RoboCop. In fact, you don't even get your cyborg robot armor until the 3rd level. Until then, you're a traffic cop in tan slacks. He's got nice boots, though. I remember renting this game when it was new, and my opinion really hasn't changed much. It's like a glorified NES side-scroller. Games like this were the first-person shooters of 1990. We were drowning in them. Some of them were amazing, like The Revenge of Shinobi. Others were downright awful. And then there's E-SWAT, which is right in the middle. It has its moments. It's not terrible, it's just... It feels like an early Sega Genesis game. It's kind of slow, it plods along, it's got a nice style, but not much imagination in the gameplay department. It doesn't even start to get interesting until level 3. When you finally get your cyborg armor, Murphy, it's you! No, it's not, it's this other guy. You know he's still got his cool boots underneath that armor though, right? Finally, we live up to the title of the game. There's a bigger health bar and jetpacks. If you can make it through the boredom and mediocrity of the first 2 levels, you can start to enjoy the game. But don't expect anything that hasn't been done better before. Sure, you'll pick up some new weapons, and one of them is a flamethrower. Never a bad thing. As you can tell, I'm not a huge fan of this one, but it's not to say that you shouldn't give it a try. It's actually really cheap and easy to find. This one is also on the Virtual Console and in Sonic's Ultimate Genesis collection.
Mission completed.
Good drum roll there. The music's not too bad, and I like the visual style and color palette. It's definitely got that early 90s cyberpunk thing going on. But it fails to really do anything terribly exciting with the gameplay. By level 5, I think, you start flying around more and avoiding death traps and stuff. And that's actually really tricky. I ended up just getting frustrated at that point in the game. The boss battles aren't terribly exciting, and the fact is there's way better side-scrollers on the Genesis. But this one might cost you at least $1. Assuming you don't already have this in your Sonic's Ultimate Genesis collection, because you should. The question is, should you spend your time playing this, or The Revenge of Shinobi? You know the answer. Which game does it better? Yeah, that one. But there's something to be said for mastering the flying controls in E-SWAT. It feels somewhat broken. So if you're looking for a challenge, here you go. You've got to ask yourself, how many games have a death escalator? Maybe I need that in my life. It's like a Stairmaster from hell. And even less exciting. You know what? I'm gonna name that thing. I dub the Death Escalator the Death Escalator. Revenge of Shinobi does not have a Death Escalator, and neither does Macy's. At least it's got the generic side-scrolling black and yellow factory flooring. That's always a good thing. And I've got a classic game room shout-out and thank you to send to Terrell from Kingstree, South Carolina. Again, thank you, T. Thank you for E-SWAT. This one's not for me. I've been emotionally scarred by it, but if you're looking for a serious challenge, especially in the flying sequences, E-SWAT is there for you, and it's really affordable. Could have used more Dunin, though. And those giant spider things that destroyed Olympus, and chicks with fox ears and tails and stuff. Actually, probably could have done without those, but definitely the spider things. E-SWAT! City Under Siege. It may not have burning people with monsters and cutting them in half-itude, but it does have the Death Escalator. Vanished from Earth Classic Game Room broadcasts from the Intergalactic Space Arcade on its never-ending mission to review everything. Welcome to Classic Game Room. We've all seen the 3D fad come and go, and now it's virtual reality with fancy, expensive, cumbersome goggles and whatever. You don't need any of that to experience real 3D virtual reality with electronic 3D Ninja Fighter. All you need is 2 AA batteries and some ninja skills from Tiger Electronics, the makers of the R-Zone. So, you think you've played all the games. Have you played Electronic 3D Ninja Fighter?
Welcome to my 3D House of Pain.
If not, then you haven't experienced a hybrid live-action LCD plastic video game in 3 dimensions. It's amazing. If amazing meant terrible. Like if you went back in time and changed the meaning of amazing to mean something completely opposite of what it actually means, then that's exactly what this would be, in 3 dimensions.
Why couldn't they design these games to be easier to film in the future? I don't understand this. Surely you knew Classic Game Room was going to review your game, Tiger Electronics. Make an easier spinny knob. That's not my fault, that's their fault. I fight ninjas in 3 dimensions like it's my job. Because it's my job. I have the 3D skills to pay the 3D bills. It's so real, it's like I'm there. I can almost smell the trees on fire.
When this arrived at the Intergalactic Space Arcade, I took one look at it and said, wow, that's incredible. It doesn't disappoint except in every way that it possibly can.
Woo! That's right. -2. Wait, round 2. Sorry, that's what that means. Bring it! Take your whack-ass 2-dimensional ninja somewhere else. I am a 3D plastic ninja. Living in a 2D electronic world. I am a material girl.
What you do in Electronic 3D Ninja Fighter is reasonably simple. You fight LCD ninjas with your LCD arm that magically appears from beneath your plastic body.
I don't know why anybody would buy a VR headset when you could have this. Nothing gives you the thrill of actually fighting ninjas in a plastic forest like this thing. What? Game over? The only thing I can do is move back and forth. It's a life in captivity.
It's like a metaphor for life. Are we not all 3D plastic ninjas forced to spend eternity inside a plastic case until it runs out of batteries?
I should have named this game 3D Armless Ninja Fighter. Electronic 3D live-action video Ninja Fighter LCD game from Tiger. That's a long title. But a great game. It kind of looks like Shinobi, except Shinobi only fights in 2 dimensions, whereas this fights in 3 dimensions. Look at that. Your little ninja moves back and forth. If we look in the background here, we've got some trees on fire. Some ninja stars lodged in that tree, and that one over there. We've got this ninja here, who's either chasing our hero 3D ninja or cheering him on, maybe both. Yay, go! And we've got a patch of grass or some vomit there, not sure. And I don't know what those are. Light posts, mailboxes, ICBMs. Who can say? Here's a look at it from the side. It's almost like an aquarium. I like that. And yeah, 3D Ninja Fighter. What will they think of next? 25 years ago. Tiger Electronics. Evil geniuses they were. Evil geniuses. You cannot defeat my Kung Fu. My 3D Kung Fu. Your 2D Kung Fu will always lose to 3D Kung Fu. The extra D makes it that much better. No. Woo! It's like this is so real. It's like I'm actually there.
It's not a good game, but you have to admit this is fascinating.
Electronic 3D Ninja Fighter? No! It's this stupid controller.
which is slippery and requires more force than you might expect to rotate. It's this game's biggest weakness, beyond the fact that it sucks. This knob is not really the greatest knob in the world. I feel like a real 3D Ninja would have better controls than this. I keep banging the camera. It's not me, it's the Ninja. Woo! There's just no easy way to record this. But it's lovable. You gotta give it that. If you're going to make a crappy LCD game, at least make it interesting. I have to commend the Tiger Electronic engineers for that. I hate this game, yet I can't stop playing it. I am a three-dimensional ninja living in a two-dimensional world, dispensing 4 dimensions of pain. Come on, bring it. I defy physics with my ninja stars. I am like the Stephen Hawking of ninjas. I mean, it's not good. I just kind of like it. Probably because it's not good. It is memorable. You can throw ninja stars, you swipe your ninja sword, you can even light enemies on fire, but I think that depletes your health. I'm not sure. It doesn't matter. You'll never play this game. It's just a fabulous curiosity. And I've got a huge electronic 3D Ninja Fighter! Oh! Sized classic game room shout out and thank you going to my man Eric in Pasadena, California once again. Thank you, Eric. I had fun recording this one. It's not fun to play, but it is fun to review. Thank you for sending this amazing game to the show. All this fighting, yet we never learn his name. Three-dimensional ninja, what do we call you? I dub thee Greg. My recommendation is that you pass on this one. Spend your money on a cup of coffee instead, like a really cheap cup of coffee. Electronic 3D Ninja Fighter! Just messing with you on that one. Or am I? I am bringing the zone of danger in 3 dimensions. I know that you all love the Gamecom, therefore I hate you. Maybe that's what this ninja is throwing at them. These aren't ninja stars. They're Gamecoms. I am beating waves of enemies with Tiger Gamecoms. Is there a more effective weapon than the Gamecom? Perhaps a weaponized R-Zone? Banished from Earth, classic game room broadcasts from the intergalactic space arcade on its never-ending mission to review everything. Welcome to Classic Game Room for the review of Astro Flash on the Sega Mark III, which features a transforming robot that has racing stripes and the shovel laser. Good times. Transforming robot, racing stripes, and the shovel laser, sign me up. But before you buy Astro Flash, you can also pick this game up as Transbot for the Sega Master System, which is an amusing title, but not nearly as awesome as the packaging artwork for Transbot. Google that. Wait, no, I'm sorry, this is Classic Game Room. Netscape that. And if that fails, use your Sega Dreamcast web browser. What we see on screen now is a mighty transforming robot with the shovel laser that literally shovels enemies off the screen. I love this thing. Best weapon in the game. Transbot. A great combination of Transformers and GoBots. Astro Flash is a much better title, released on a Sega My Card for the Sega Mark III. I actually really like the artwork for this game on the cartridge, and this could be described as the spiritual prequel to Sega's Aero Flash, released to the arcades and on the Sega Genesis, which also features a transforming robot. But that transforming robot doesn't have what could only be described as awesome racing stripes. Look at the color palette here. Brown robot, orange and green racing stripes. Or at least orange and green highlights. It's amazing. If I had control over the color editor, that's pretty much what I would do. I might give it more yellow, in addition to the brown and orange. The scrolling landscape is quite interesting. The city in the background looks like a fun place to visit, but you'll never see it because you're too busy flying right shooting enemies. Astro Flash is a very simple, straightforward game. In addition to flying a brown transforming robot, its best feature is the roulette wheel weapon power-up system, where after you shoot that fan it releases a power-up, you collect that and then select your weapon in its very own mini-game within the game. C is the best because that's the shovel laser. B will give you the ring laser, whatever, from Gradius. D is a super laser. It's kind of slow, not the best weapon. E is a spread shot. A, which I just got there, is the crappy default laser, and G will replenish your ammo. So it's a neat trick because you don't always get the weapon that you want, which would always be the shovel laser. See, now if I had the shovel laser there, that would have been no problem. I still haven't figured out how the game determines when you move to level 2, but at some point, you'll drop down into a pipe from Super Mario Bros. And fight the ATST from Star Wars. If that doesn't sell this game, I don't know what will. The bars at the top of the screen max out on the right. The arm is your ammunition, and the power level is your shield strength. You can take a couple hits. And as promised, here we have the end boss, or at least a mini-boss, or a sub-boss. The ATST from Star Wars. No, the AT-AT is not in the game, sadly. Like most of the enemies in Astro Flash, it's not too hard once you figure out the shot patterns. Eventually, the game just wears you down. And that's when it gets you, racing stripes and all. Yes, take that ATST. Did you catch the music? Of course you did. It's okay. The whole game is okay. It's no better than that. But it's no worse either, provided you know what to expect. As you progress through Astro Flash, it just rotates and gets a bit more challenging as the screen fills with more and more enemies. At some point you'll slip up and make a mistake and lose, and then you'll play a different game. Aero Flash is a lot better. But I like that it doesn't just hand you weapon power-ups, it makes you select them with a bit of skill. And that's pretty clever because it really mixes up each game. No two games are ever the same. In fact, the enemy attacks are also pretty random, so there's a good degree of replay value in here if you can deal with the simplicity of Astro Flash. I always got my high scores with the shovel laser, obviously. It's called the shovel laser, and I named it that. And I've got a classic game room, shout out and thank you, going to my man Mark and his wife Suzanne from East Meadow, New York once again. Thank you, Mark and Suzanne. I thought this game would make a fun addition to Mecha March Madness since you play as a transforming robot, and odds are many of you have never heard of Astro Flash. So now you know, and knowing is half the brown transforming robot. Astro Flash can be found eBayably online. It's not too expensive, and you can also pick this one up as Transbot for the Sega Master System. I'll put a link at the end of the review to Aero Flash, which is a much better game in pretty much every respect, but this one has racing stripes.
Wasn't that game a lot of fun? That's like the El Camino of robots. I love it. Let's take a close-up look at the Sega My Card for Astro Flash. My Card. Get your own. My Card for Astro Flash, which looks really cool as you can see, except the spaceship is not brown. Although it does still have racing stripes. It's got more of a Jetfire paint scheme there. I like these things. Those are the little delivery vans that bring your weapons. They look pretty cool. My favorite part of this is obviously, you've probably already noticed,
Little ATST there in the background, walking around. Looks nice. Got explosions. We've got Sega. Two good things. And a flying robot back there. Sega My Card. Mark III. Did you notice in the back? There's a spot here where I can sign my name. Wonder what I should sign it. That's right, this Sega Mark III card belongs to Mark III. All three of me. Past Mark, future Mark, and Sega Mark III fanboy Mark. Who loves the Sega Mark III? I'm not sure what this stuff says. Probably something like, don't boil it, light it on fire, eat it, drown it, feed it after midnight. It's like a gremlin. Great looking My Card. Someone should make a poster out of this. And if you do a reprinting, make the spaceship orange, and brown, and green with racing stripes. It looks pretty good as it is.
Banished from Earth, Classic Game Room broadcasts from the Intergalactic Space Arcade on its never-ending mission to review everything. Welcome to Classic Game Room, coming to you from the Intergalactic Space Arcade. Thank you once again to everyone who's backed Classic Game Room on Patreon. The show has done very well, and I'm extremely grateful because I can continue reviewing awesome games like this, the incredible Panzer Dragoon Orta. Sit back and relax. This game is great, and so are all of you. Thank you very much for supporting Classic Game Room. Now, let's take over the future of the universe. Every now and then I play a game and step back and just say, wow, now that was a piece of art. And this is one of those games, released in 2003 from Sega and Smilebit. It's Panzer Dragoon Orta. Where do I get one of those things as a pet? I want to keep it out in the backyard on a leash, just freak out the neighbors. Has anyone seen Stumpy? He's about the size of Michigan, has 4 eyeballs and volcanoes. He loves blueberries. And you know what? I love this game. It's like Omega Boost with dragons. Which is funny because Omega Boost was like Panzer Dragoon with robots. This is a 2003 release from Sega and Smilebit for the original Xbox One. The first one. But not the first Panzer Dragoon game. In fact, this is the 6th and final one. Following Panzer Dragoon, Panzer Dragoon Zwei, Panzer Dragoon Mini, and Panzer Dragoon Saga. And if you were counting, yes, there's one more of all game systems to get a Panzer Dragoon. I haven't played it, but there's also Panzer Dragoon R-Zone on the Tiger R-Zone. Panzer Dragoon has been trapped in the R-Zone! I should do the rest of the review from within the R-Zone, except it's red and blurry, and doesn't deserve a Panzer Dragoon game like this. Good times. That was one of my all-time favorites, the R-Zone. Review, not the R-Zone itself. It's a piece of shit. But this game sure isn't. Holy crap, is Panzer Dragoon Orta good. I'm not sure if it's as amazing as the original on the Sega Saturn. It doesn't have quite the same level of art design, and the music's not nearly as good, but this is easily one of the best Xbox games that I've ever played, and an incredible on-rails shooter. Kinda like Omega Boost, which was kinda like Panzer Dragoon. You can't fly wherever you want, you just fly where the game tells you to, but you can move around the screen and lock onto enemies with your dragon's homing lasers, or shoot them manually with Orta's laser pistol. And I'm always a huge fan of homing lasers, because I feel like that really gives physics the middle finger.
And I respect that. I like anything that defies science, like Cheese Whiz. There's no reason it should be good, it just is. But there's lots of reasons that Panzer Dragoon Orta is good. And did I just hear from somebody out there on the internet that you've never had Cheese Whiz? Oh my, you don't know what you're missing. You gotta go with Whiz. Now let's talk about the gameplay here. You don't control the dragon in an open world sense. You can move your dragon around the screen, and you have 3 dragons to choose from. Tapping the top button on your controller, and I'm playing this on Xbox 360, by the way. This is an original Xbox game that is backwards compatible with your 360. Tapping the Y button rotates between your base wing, heavy wing, and glide wing. You'll need all 3 to get through the game. The heavy wing is slow and more powerful. The base wing is good for most situations. It locks onto numerous targets and you can accelerate and decelerate. The glide wing is the most maneuverable. It's pretty weak, but good for some of those tunnel sequences and certain boss battles. In typical Panzer Dragoon fashion, enemies will surround you from all directions and you can look forward, backwards, left, and right to fire. So the controls are interesting. It's an odd combination of flying your dragon while also aiming and shooting at the exact same time, which is somehow independent from the flight controls. It's a counterintuitive control scheme that takes some getting used to, but after a while it starts to make sense. And this is a tough game. Anything beyond easy is extremely challenging and will require much repeat gameplay. Thankfully, it saves you progress after each level, and it's a long game. And I've got a giant laser shooting dragon-sized classic game room shout out and thank you to send to Laurie from Imatra, Finland. Thank you for sending Panzer Dragoon Orta to this show. Quite some time ago, it took me a while to really dig into the game, but boy am I glad that I did, and I recommend that you all do so too. As you play through the game, you'll also unlock a lot of stuff in Pandora's box, including this neat little playthrough where you're one of the bad guys or something. There's a massive amount of content here, lots of replay value. It's just too bad the music isn't as good as the original, but beyond that, it's really a terrific game, and so highly recommended for your Xbox or your Xbox 360. I look forward to making Panzer Dragoon Saga my next Panzer Dragoon game, and then maybe I'll even take that dreaded trip into the How did it get a Panzer Dragoon game? It looks great, it plays well, and don't forget to upgrade all of your dragons. It's Panzer Dragoon Orta. The Warzone contains many mysteries and Panzer Dragoon. Panzer Dragoon Orta is tough. If you played anything higher than easy, this game is going to kick your ass for a while. So I played it for hours and recorded many hours of gameplay. So let's watch some more footage, dig a little bit deeper into the game. Maybe I'll even start talking about RoboCop, because what does RoboCop have to do with Panzer Dragoon Orta? Nothing, except they're both awesome. So enjoy the extended cut. Stay out of trouble. Orta is the main character in Panzer Dragoon Orta, and she has an R and an O in her name, just like RoboCop. Also, they're huge fans of TJ Laser. Who isn't? Did you know that they basically created their own language and culture for the Panzer Dragoon series? It's like Klingon. Nokcha! Except not as cool as Klingon. Because Klingon is the best. I don't speak Panzer Dragoon, but I speak Jive. Or at least I try to after a few drinks. At the beginning of the game, we find Orta imprisoned, and the Empire believes she's the bringer of doom or something, so they send these dragon mares out to kill her, but she's saved at the last moment by a dragon. A friendly dragon, like the Panzer Dragoon kind of happy, friendly dragon, who whisks her away on her wild adventure to destroy everything through 10 levels of awesome. And while I'm not usually one to get immersed in video game plots, I'm more about the art and the gameplay. This one does a nice job storytelling throughout the adventure. There's a nice scene later in the game where she learns some of her backstory from within a computer. She's a half drone, half human. The boss battles are certainly interesting. The art design is wild. And in between each of the levels or episodes, you get some cutscenes and additional dialogue telling the story. You really don't get this level of detail in most video games. When you play Panzer Dragoon Orta, you get the feeling, or at least I think you'll get the feeling, that you're playing something special. I particularly enjoy this guy, who seems like a complete weirdo, like he'd be super fun to hang out with. The one who's clearly high as a kite and belongs on Jabba's sail barge. Yeah, he's awesome. Not only does he roll his R's, but he's starting to slur. After each level, you get a rating, and that's part of how you unlock the special features from within Pandora's box, including the original Panzer Dragoon, which isn't unlockable. And there's also a short second storyline involving another boy as well. It's a shame to see that the series, at least as of this recording, is stagnant, because it's a really nice game created by a lot of talented people who clearly worked very hard. And I, for one, think it would be amazing to see what they could do with a Panzer Dragoon game today if it was done right like this, instead of just getting one level and having to pay for the rest as DLC. You know, you'll never find unlockable second storylines anymore, that's for sure. Is your mission to look less evil? Because if that's the case, you're failing miserably. Thankfully, this game doesn't. Panzer Dragoon Orta is super duper highly recommended. I'm really looking forward to playing Panzer Dragoon Saga next. Until then, have a good time playing this one because it rocks. Panzer Dragoon Orta.
Banished from Earth, Classic Game Room broadcasts from the intergalactic space arcade on its never-ending mission to review everything until the year 2018, when Classic Game Room mysteriously vanished into a black hole vortex after being struck by a quasar meteor from another universe. Enduring forces beyond time, space, and imagination, Classic Game Room emerged in the 25th century, but was promptly ejected from the 25th century back to the 21st century, where it resumed operations in the year 2085, saving humanity with an army of clones producing game reviews under the direction of a broken computer from the 1970s.
Do you like Classic Game Room?
Banished from Earth, time, space, and reality, Classic Game Room broadcasts from the future. A future where Classic Game Room broadcasts from the future using future-tastic technology that nobody understands. Welcome to the year 2085 in space. Woo. Maybe you're wondering, what's the year 2085 like? It's like season 1 of Buck Rogers, but not quite as good. If you know, you know. Hey, before I get this show started, allow me to introduce you to the show's producer. This is Edit Station 1.
Wasn't this show canceled like 5 times? You suck.
Isn't he fantastic? Guess what? This year marks an important Classic Game Room milestone. That's right. CGR 2085 celebrates Classic Game Room's 86th anniversary in space. Imagine that. How many other internet video game review shows do you know that started out in 1999 and ran all the way until 2085 with only a few casualties? We've lost a few clones along the way. Some of them drowned in the vats of lemon blend. Others were ejected out the airlock. I didn't do it. Hey, let's get this show started.
Engage disco!
Here's what you can expect in today's fantastic episode. Classic Game Room reviews the Evercade. Mark makes new friends. Classic Game Room celebrates its 25th anniversary. Mark loses new friends. Where has Classic Game Room been? Mark answers ridiculous questions, a look behind the scenes, and something secret.
I don't like secrets. This show is dumb. I'd rather watch influencers teach me how to better myself.
It looks like this show is gonna be a lot of fun. Hey, in the future, everything is way more awesome. In the year 2085, we fight space bees with laser chainsaws, and angry robots have, for the most part, burned all social media to the ground. So it's way better than whatever crappy year you're living in. So wasn't I surprised to find out that the hot game console of 2085 is the Evercade? It's not a PlayStation, it's not a Nintendo whatever. It's not downloading free games from your PC that you then have to buy infinite add-ons for. It's the Evercade, and it plays game cartridges. And it's got a little door, so I can do the Pac-Man thing with it. Waka, 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 waka.
Unsubscribed!
New Jersey! That's just fun to say. And so is Evercade. What? You've never played the Evercade? It's the game system that plays Truxton and Final Zone. Evercade does what Nintendo don't. It brings the
Checkpoint.
like a bad mother.
Congratulations!
Released in 2020, that's a long time ago, the Evercade is a future retro game system that plays game cartridges. Because downloadable games suck. The future is cartridges. Just think of what game systems play cartridges. Sega Genesis, Neo Geo, Vectrex, and Atari 2600. You know what doesn't play cartridges? The Hyperscan. Don't be like the Hyperscan. Yo, I love the Evercade and its wackadoo collection of games. Its game catalog is all over the place, and most importantly, it plays game cartridges. Game cartridges are the future, future, in addition to Laserdisc. So hopefully the developers will make like a Sega CD style attachment for this thing where you plug it in on top of a giant Laserdisc player like the Evercade Laser Active. Make that happen for next year in 2086. Here we've got the Toeplan Collection 2, Toeplan Collection 1, IREM Collection with In the Hunt, Worth the Price Alone, Moon Patrol, Galeco, brings us Glass and World Rally, Demons of Astaborg, Bitmap, Brothers, the Renovation Collection. Should appeal to you Sega Genesis fans out there, which I assume are all of you because everybody loves the Sega Genesis. And Blast Processing. We've got Final Zone, Gyres, and so many more. Data East Collection, Sunsoft with Blaster Master, and the Technos Collection for your Double Dragon fix. It's the Evercade. What's not to love? There's even a handheld version.
When you boot up the Evercade, it shows you all of the games that you have inserted on 2 game cartridges at the same time. Not even the Sega Genesis does that, but the Gamecom does. So the Evercade is like 6 degrees of separation from the Gamecom. That means when you play the Evercade, you should punch yourself in the face. But in a good way. The game on screen now is Alcon from Toeplan. Like, where else are you gonna find Alcon? The Evercade, that's where. Sure, you could find all these games online somewhere, but presumably, you're kicking a couple pennies back to Toeplan. And that's like buying them a beer, and frankly, they deserve it. Pay the developers for the games they made, even if they suck.
Dark World, Stage 3.
My favorite feature of the Evercade is its just ridiculously unexpected game catalog. There's some games that you'd expect to find, big ones that you've heard about, like Truxton, Moon Patrol, Burger Time, and Fire Shark! But then there's the other ones, like Glass. I'm not sure what's going on here, but every level is a different world. That just sounds like a defunct strip club. And this is the last strip club that anybody wants to go to.
Fire World, Stage 1.
But do they serve soup? You can always judge a strip club by the quality of its soup.
Hell World.
This is a strange game in the Galco collection, however you pronounce that, where you clear off the glass from the playfield and shoot enemies. It's just so totally bizarre. Not that difficult, but maybe a good party game if you have some friends over and 15 beers in you.
Wood World.
That way you can all shout out at the same time, Wood's World! She said wood. Would you kindly play a different game in the Galco collection, like World Rally, which is much better. Reminds me of Neo Drift Out on the Neo Geo. A great game. The Evercade is a great way to discover some video games that perhaps you've missed over the years, like Guardian from Toeplan. Has it ever kept you awake at night wondering what would happen if Mag Max ever mated with Ninja Golf? Well, wonder no more. It's Guardian. I don't know if I like this game or hate it, but I do appreciate that it reminds me of Mag Max and Ninja Golf. It's also on the same game cartridge as Truxton, Tiger Heli, and Zero Wing. All your weird-ass games belong to us.
Here it is, everyone. The Evercade Versus. Not the most stylish game console in the world. This could definitely benefit from some wood grain, or maybe a stainless steel strip right in the front that says Pro System, or
Perhaps 16-bit high-definition graphics. A volume slider over here. Wonder what that would be. Anyway, this is roughly the same size as the Gamecom, except unlike the Gamecom, the Evercade does not suck. It's actually very nice, even if it could use more wood grain. Open the door there. Ooh, look at that. It's like a cavernous, spacious interior. Perfect for your favorite Evercade games. You insert up to 2 of them in here. I haven't tried to put 3 in there. They probably wouldn't work, but 2 works perfectly well. And then when you turn the game system on, it shows you all the games that are on these 2 game cartridges. Got 4 USB ports here in the front for 4 controllers. 4-player gameplay. Maybe that's what the Versus stands for. Versus your friends?
It's the Evercade versus Ed 209. Ed 209 wins every time. You have 15 seconds to comply.
You didn't mention the music in level 3. Unsubscribed. Again.
That's not true. It depends on the game. The music in level 3 is great, provided the game is Blaster Master. Once again proving that Evercade does what Nintendo don't.
Okay. Okay, we'll go with that. Sure.
Blaze Entertainment, no doubt named after one of the characters from Streets of Rage 3. Got some rubber footies on there for grip, and there's your HDMI output. That's where your power cable goes, and like a lot of these modern electronics, it does not come with its own power supply. Hopefully you've got a spare phone charger laying around somewhere. I'm using an ancient iPhone charger. It works perfectly well. And I'm not sure what that button does. I haven't pushed it yet. It might blow something up. I don't know. Well, certainly not without power. Evercade. Waka, 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 waka. I like the little door. You know, I gotta admit, I kind of like the door on the NES. Like, that was always one of my favorite features. Useless. But for some reason, inviting. Ow! The Evercade is a great way to experience the thrill of retro gaming without paying retro gaming prices. Because in the future, these things cost a fortune. In the year 2085, someone paid $18 million for a defaced copy of E.T. on the Atari 2600.
Checkpoint.
And sure, there's 1,000,001 retro gaming collections out there on various game consoles, but the Evercade's controller has a racing stripe. Evercade does what Nintendo don't,
Checkpoint.
You have to drink every time you hear checkpoint or future in this video.
In the future,
Checkpoint.
real on the Evercade, because companies keep releasing good games for this thing, like Demons of Astaborg. How do you pronounce that?
Future.
Checkpoint.
Not only are Evercade game collections released on game cartridges, but they're also sold in plastic clamshell cases, like Sega Genesis games and the Master System. Not that whack-ass cardboard crap that Nintendo sold you back in the day.
Oh,
Checkpoint.
you tell them how it's done in the future, Mark.
That means that every Evercade game has a dash of blast processing in it. Just a little bit. Especially if it's the Renovation Collection. Did somebody say Granada? Future, 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 future.
Hey, before you murder your entire audience, why don't we take a break and celebrate this show's 25th anniversary? In the future.
Ooh, future music.
6 years of Classic Game Room, though some of you might be wondering, where did Classic Game Room go in those missing years of like 2018 through 2084? The short answer is that I was busy fighting Robotrons. The longer answer is a bit more complicated and will require the services of Producer Mark from the year 2024, when Classic Game Room celebrated its 25th anniversary. Yo, this is Producer Mark coming to you from the year 2024. It's like an idiocracy that never ends. I can't wait for the space bees and murderous robots. Bring them on. Where has Classic Game Room been? It's a good question, so let me use some pictures to illustrate this. The show has a long history, and it's kind of complicated and doesn't make much